Hello and welcome to the Corporate Escapists TV show. I'm your host, Christine Innes, and I'm so excited to have the very beautiful Tracy joining me today. Tracy is an incredible woman. She is a fearless change maker, and I just love that because I just know her passion and energy and what she delivers is just something that all women need to have. She is an incredible coach, a speaker, and author, and she really works with you to bring out the best in motivation, resilience, and also your confidence. So welcome, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much. It's an honour to be here.
Look, I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today and really talk about, resilience and how women can be, resilient in work or resilient at home. And sometimes we're maybe not in that sort of alignment with it, but how we can really use that and, bring it to every single day in our life.
Yes, and that's a really good statement you've just made, because we are all at different levels in terms of our resilience, which depends on our ability to bounce back. So to give it a very, very simple definition, resilience is about our ability to draw on our experiences and the opportunities we have or can put ourselves into to literally bounce back. And sometimes that can take us a bit of time, and sometimes we need a little nudge. And so what I've done is I've developed a mindset roadmap to help people build their resilience, because you're not born with it. It's something you can build and grow. So with resilience, we can have two different types of mindset, and that will determine right from birth how we operate during our lives. So we can have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And with a fixed mindset, we believe that we are what we are, we're born with what we are, and we can't change. And this is a lot of people in the world. The reason being because when we're born with that immediate ability to survive, and we do that as a baby by demanding attention, to be fed, to be kept warm, be clothed, it's bathed, etc., etc. So that gives us an ability of power, and from that power, some people develop in their family in accordance with the roles they have in their family. They can develop to take on the roles that they're given, or rebel, like me, be a disruptor or rebel against those roles. So a lot of people take the easy path, which is follow the rules of power, and it's a terrible word, power, but the rules of power in the house or the family and how the family run. So most of us are brought up with routine, and it's relatively strict in terms of you do this, you have to go to school, you have to eat breakfast, you have to go to bed at this time, etc., etc., etc. And so it becomes ingrained in us, and then that becomes all that we know. So when we talk to other people, our conversations are more from a base where we want that person to do what we want them to do. So whether we're in business or in our private life, unbeknown to us, this inherited power base will dictate how we converse with people. And what result that has is how people react to us. So if we're deemed as too powerful, then people will push back against us, and we will find we'll have confrontation. And so many people find that, especially in the business world or the work life, that they struggle with people and people struggle with them because of this notion of power. Yeah.
I think it's really, I noticed, like, especially in myself, and I look back into my corporate world, is that I probably wasn't as resilient as what I am in my personal life, because I've had some challenges, obviously, in my personal life, and I've been able to really draw upon those. So whenever I get that little bump in the road, I sort of know, okay, well, you can handle this. But then obviously I don't know whether or not it was because of my corporate identity that I had, going in there, that I was a different person. And when I say different person, it was more the fact that I was trying to show up as somebody else, as somebody what I thought that they needed in that corporate role. So I have a feeling that, and let me know if I'm right, that when we are not being authentic as well, especially when we're going into our corporate world or into our job as such, that we can't actually bring on that resilience as well, because we're not actually showing our true characteristics at work.
It's a really good statement that you've just said there, and you're absolutely correct. So when we leave school, we are not taught how to interview to be ourselves. What we're taught is how to interview to meet the needs of the governing body of the business who we want to go into, or any site that we want to go into. And therefore, we won't step forward. We won't put ourselves out there because we don't want to, because we're actually fearful. We don't want them to see what we think is not our best side. And that's a big mistake. And that's why so many people struggle with resilience right from school, because school doesn't provide us with that ability. And then you've got teachers teaching the students who are not resilient. So you've got this cycle. And so really, when it comes down to the education system, the curriculum isn't up to date. It's about 2 decades behind, and probably more, in terms of meeting the needs of the new age, the new generation, and what they need, and even people like you and I. So from my world, I left my corporate world of being a high school principal for 38 years in a government system, and I left with absolute knowledge, really firm knowledge, that few people were resilient who were employees, and they could not connect because they could not speak with confidence to talk about their real selves. So being authentic is absolutely imperative. And that comes right back to, how do we do that? How do we do it? Because we're not going to go for a job that we have to have a job. We have to have a job to make ends meet and have a wage. But being authentic in ourselves is actually being able to connect with others by having our own needs met first. So that sounds a bit selfish, but if you put yourself out there as who you are, for me, in my world, as you can imagine, as a principal, when I suspended a student, no parent was going to hug me and say, "Oh, thank you, Tracy. That was so good. That was great. You know, thank you for suspending my student for smashing someone's face in." So there has to be that ability where you are, you set your boundaries, and you speak from your heart, and you speak from what you know is right or wrong. And people are, due to the click, like, tag world we're in with social media, everyone's happy, everyone's, "Oh, you're wonderful." Well, the world isn't like that. No one's wonderful. And yes, there are very difficult things we have in life. And instead of pushing back against them, which a lot of people would do, so to use my analogy as a good one, as a high school principal, you know, the days aren't easy. You spend every single day counselling someone, whether it be a parent, a student, or a staff member, and you've got a lot of them. So my day was like appointment, back to back. And it was the same thing I was hearing all the time. So with that, in terms of accepting who we are and accepting our weaknesses, is a good place to start. And especially when you're in that corporate world and you're looking to leave, as you said, how do we prepare ourselves to do that? It's good.
I think that there's so many powerful things in that, because especially, you know, I mean, we've both worked in sort of corporate, you know, the environments, and you are dealing with lots and lots of different personalities as well. And, you know, I had a conversation yesterday, and we're talking about how sometimes you may have to shift your personality just a little bit just to be able to connect with that other person. Yeah. But it's also making sure, and what I loved about that is knowing your own boundaries and also knowing your values. And I think if you have those very, very clear, because that is also part of your authenticity, because when you know what your boundary is and what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to, you know, bring or allow into your sort of world or your circle, that also allows you then to really start to be authentic. It allows you to speak more from the heart. It allows you to, you know, put a stop of when you're going to say, well, no, that's that's not for me. And I think that is one of the things that also needs to be taught quite a lot. And, if we can start having those types of conversations, I think that will then allow the resilience to come through, because you've got that solid foundation that you can sort of bounce back from, because you've already got that. And then it allows you to sort of, springboard back up just that little bit easier as well.
Absolutely right. And what I find in life, and given that I am a baby boomer, so I was born in 1960, so my generation was, you were seen and not heard. So we weren't given the ability to have really connecting conversations at the dinner table. You literally sat there and if you didn't hold your knife and fork correctly, it was all about being seen and not heard. So one of the problems we have in our schools and our education system, the way we're brought up or bringing up our kids, or the way, and I like to use my analogy of my work because it's probably the best and the most I've had. But what we want to do is praise the child all the time, or praise the teacher, or praise the parent for an activity they've done. And an activity is something that should be done. You don't need praise. You say, for example, you'll write your lesson plans and your curriculum previews, etc., and you need to have them done by such and such date. And then all of a sudden, someone's back world comes in. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, little Johnny's this at home, or this. It's not about what's happening at home. So we don't need that praise to do something that is an expectation. And this is what happens in our school systems. We praise for doing an activity. We should actually be praising for the effort put into it. And that is the difference. And if you praise, whether that be parents, students, or staff members, if you praise for the effort put into it, that is what will make you resilient, because that is what I call your PB, your personal best. You work against yourself. You don't worry about what other people think. Too many of us, and social media is a big problem for this, too many of us are comparing ourselves with everyone else instead of ourselves, comparing with our own standards. So we need to set that standard. And this is where everyone struggles with failure. So say I have a staff member who repeatedly fails to do a program which must be in by a certain date. They're paid for that. That's their job description. But they will struggle and scream and rebel because they don't want to do it. And that could be because they don't know how to do it, or they don't feel good about it, or they just need to seek help and they're not asking for it. And this is one of the problems we need to do, teach people, and whether they be young people or older people or whatever age or gender or culture, we need to teach people it's about effort. And effort is what builds your resilience. So, it's a good one, isn't it?
I love it, because I know that when my son was at school, he didn't fit the norm. Like he works with his hands. He's not, don't give him a textbook, all that sort of stuff. And then I noticed that, once he started going to TAFE, everything changed because he was working with his hands. But it was the effort that he was putting in. And even though he didn't get the A's and all that sort of stuff, it was that, look, I know that this was a struggle for you to, sit down and do this assignment. So, fantastic. But I think also too, you hit on a really good point, especially for when we're in business, because we have this comparative, we compare all the time, to so many people. And, with social media, it's so accessible for us to be able to do that. But we have to learn to stay in our own lanes and just remember that because we are so unique and we're all individuals, is that, what I do, what you do, there is really no comparison, to it, because there's different coaches out there, there's different mentors out there, there's, people with different color hair. We should not be comparing. We just need to learn to stay in our own lane. But also, I guess the motivation and part of the resilience comes into the fact is with what you said, is the effort that you're putting in there. Because when you put the effort in there and you're staying in your own lane, you're being authentic, you're showing up as yourself, that is when you're going to build your confidence, but you're also going to become resilient, because you know that you've stuck in that particular lane, you're stuck to yourself, and you've been able to, deal with what comes up with it as well.
And that's exactly right, Christine, because when I mentioned earlier about the mindset, we are all born with a growth mindset. We're not taught that though, and that's not your everyday knowledge, but it needs to be, because what that means is we can change every single day, and we can grow every single day. So if we read X number of books, Tony Robbins is a big one at that, if you'll find all the old philosophers will tell you, you keep improving your intelligence and you keep growing your mind, then you will grow your self-esteem because of that. And then you'll put yourself out there to try different experiences. So I was talking, I'm just done two days training in scalp micropigmentation, as I was telling you. And I was talking to some of the students in there with me in the class about some of my experiences that I've done with scuba diving or this or that, horse riding, or with my sister with her race horses the other morning. And so for me to put myself out there and to try different experiences is the norm for me. And whereas for a lot of people, they go, oh wow, that's a lot. Well, it might seem a lot to them, but it's actually not to me, because I crave that growth mindset all the time. And so when you crave the growth mindset, you are not scared of failure. And everyone I meet is scared of failure. And that's okay. That's something that's inherent in a lot of people. Once again, it's the way we're brought up. You fail, and there it is on your school report. You didn't get an A+, and oh boy, imagine your self-esteem there. So we've got these report cards that are all basically hammered out on a machine, and they've all got standard machine answers that mean sweet FA. They don't mean anything to the parent or the kid.
That's it.
All they do is just tick a box for the department. So there's your first problem with failure. And then the kids will go home, oh, you didn't get an A, you didn't get this, or you didn't get that. And all of a sudden, I'm not good enough. So there still needs to be your personal best. And that's what we should be mapping. And something as simple as, okay, have a spelling test every day. So in high school, the concept of having a spelling test every day in every single subject. So you have science, right? First 5 minutes of every science lesson, you get 3 a week. We'll pick 5 spelling words out of the science curriculum, and you watch the Queensland data in terms of spelling will grow exponentially. But we don't do it. We don't do it. And it really is quite sad. It's that simple growth mindset, and people push up against it because they don't want to. They perceive it as being hard, or they're scared of failure.
Yeah, I really like, with scared of failure, because, like there's a lot of challenges that I've gone through over my life, with, failed relationships, obviously filing for bankruptcy, like all these different things. Yeah. But it is that change mindset, because I could say, oh, I failed. However, I can see this now, I say that I'm in the growth mindset because I see it as a learning lesson. I learned so much more about myself. I've learned so much more about how I can handle change. I've learned so much more about how not to be in those particular situations and all that again. But it's not until you realize that, but you don't see it as a failure. You see it as a learning lesson. And I think there is so much that we need to actually just incorporate. And that's just in our personal life, but also in business, because not everything is smooth sailing. And it's the same with children. Like nothing is ever going to go according to plan. And, we just need to learn that it's a learning lesson. What can we learn from it? And I really encourage that, especially with my clients. I say, okay, well, if we want to change your mindset, if we want to, get you to, see your full potential, don't stay in the victim mode as such. Let's turn it around and let's go, what is the lesson that we've learned? And it becomes so much more powerful instead of using the word failure.
I love it. I love what you're saying there. You've captured it perfectly. And it's the reduction, how to reduce that sense of helplessness. And you just picked it totally. And that is exactly right. Too many people, and we've got the tall poppy syndrome in Australia that's alive and well, and that is half the problem. So in my department, after 38 years in a Department of Education, predominantly in the bush, where, you know, the traditional male sort of culture is that as a female principal for a start, you can imagine the sorts of troubles. And so they want to see you fail. So your colleagues want to see you fail. They become competitive, and for no other reason than it's simply, why not knock or, you know, flick off the person at the top because you can. And that's a big problem. And then you've got your conspiracy theorists, and we see that all the time. You know, and I'll just use an example. I was talking to some people the other day, and they were saying they're vegans or whatever, and talking about different styles of eating and everything. And I say, oh, I eat meat, and you know, brought up in, you know, on a farm in the bush, and so yes, I'll grow my own meat in my backyard and eat it. And then it was just like shock and horror, and because the trend is at the moment, well, we don't eat meat because, you know, they eat this and they use all the air. What a load of hogwash. Absolute hogwash. And where do you get this information from? The internet, because the internet is right. The fact is, people want to mind their own business. If they want to eat whatever, eat it. But when they start, you know, trying to push their beliefs on everyone else, then you have a lot of people will crumble under that. So that's where we need to build our resilience, as you said, to learn not to be helpless and not to fall into that victim mentality. And that's where a lot of those people come from, a victim mentality. Now, I don't eat meat, and I'm only using that because it's a really out there subject. So, and that's what I do. I disrupt the norm. So I'll pick those subjects that upset people on purpose, because I'm not afraid to have that conversation. And we need to be able to have that conversation without the power of making people do whatever. I respect whatever other people eat. I really couldn't care less what other people eat. They eat whatever they want. But for me, I'm going to eat meat whenever I feel like it. And I might only eat, you know, lamb once a week or chicken once a week, whatever. It really doesn't matter. It's what I want to do. But it's that issue of the victim mentality, and people will lock into that victim mentality and hide in it very easily. It's a really comfortable zone. And you know, I can see those people a mile away. I can see them walking along the street, literally pick one up and see. You can tell by the face, the way they stand, the way they hold themselves, where they speak, that they're locked into that victim mentality. And that's why we need to work very, very hard in our education systems across the nation in terms of mindset and looking at what those psychologists wrote from years ago, like Maslow and his hierarchy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's so many of them that are still very pertinent today. So mindset's a big one. Resilience.
I think it's you know, if we go back and, you know, to be able to have solid foundations, and that is, you know, knowing about what your own values are, what you're going to stand for, and, you know, I mean, I've even created my own personal, you know, mission statement, and just like a big business will, you know, I have that myself. And I think the more that we, you know, have these conversations, the more that we can spark the conversation, that hopefully that will then start to, you know, have that ripple effect around the world, so that people can, you know, either implement it within themselves, implement it with their family, and then, you know, hopefully it will go further. But I really love the fact that, you know, you're here and just, you know, really being fearless about the different conversations that we need to do and have that good shake up, because it is needed. And, you know, the one thing that I really want to touch on what you said before is that we're so able to sit in our comfort zone. And as human beings, we are not designed to step out of our comfort zone. It is actually us being motivated to push ourselves that little bit further. And mindset plays such a big part of that. So that if you're able to go, okay, I want to push myself, I want to try this new activity, or I want to try and learn something new, that comes from the change mindset. But it also means that we're going to be out of our comfort zone, and that's when growth really does happen.
Yeah, it's like you're reading my mind, Christine. You're exactly right. And you know, I watch so many, obviously I have to be all over social media because of my businesses, and I have 3. So one of the things I notice is that people will be quick to say, oh, you know, go out and go to the gym and do that. But what they don't realise is it's all well and good to say that, but a lot of people, as you say, are locked into their victim mentality, literally locked into their houses. And to actually leave the house and go and get a gym membership, which they might not be able to afford, and actually walk into the gym with a mob of strangers is really, really difficult. So what I came up with is what I call my 5 micro habits. And this is an absolute guarantee that you can start to change your mindset. And all of these micro habits are leveraged on a morning routine. So there's no excuse. And any family can do it. Any person can do it. And you should be doing it. And you should be doing it with your kids. And I wonder if I've got a quick moment to tell you what my 5 micro habits are.
I'm such a big believer in morning routines, and it literally changed so much in how I operate during the day. So I can't wait.
Great, thank you. So my belief is that if you want to change your mindset and you want to really work at your growth, then you do it on little tiny increments. You don't give yourself some great big goal and say, I'm going to do this, and it fails. Obviously, we see that all the time. We hear it all the time with weight loss. So for an example, my 5 micro habits that I teach are leveraged on things you'll actually do in the morning, so you can't not do them. There's no way to excuse yourself. So the very first micro habit I teach my clients is when you wake up in the morning, the very, very first thing you do is you don't look at the clock. You roll onto your back and you stretch out on your back. And I actually have people lie on the ground and do it. And what I say is that you put your thumb as if you had a bra strap. You stick your thumb on your chest under your bra strap. So I'll just stand up for everyone. So you stick your thumb there and you'll be lying down. And then you have 10 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. 10 deep breaths. And if your thumb is moving while you're doing that, then you're doing it correctly. So you reposition your thumb and you have a nice stretch. Now, something as simple as that is harmless. There's no mind in this universe that can say, I can't do it unless, of course, you're extremely ill or bedridden in hospital, etc. But your average person who's able can do it. 10 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Turn around and sit up. The next mindset, the next micro habit is you should have a glass of water on the sideboard next to your bed, and which will be at room temperature. So there's all science behind all of these things you're doing. Pick up that glass of water and drink it. So then you've just done 2 micro habits without any effort at all. Everyone can walk to bed and put a glass of water, a little bottle, or whatever you want, the screw top on it, next to your bed. And then you get up, and it's really obvious. Everyone has to go to the toilet when you get up out of bed. The minute you stand, everything's just going to run south. So that's good. Go to the toilet. Go to the toilet, and when you turn around and flush the chain, you're going to do 5 squats. So when you're at the toilet, you're going to do 5 squats. Really easy. Everyone can do 5 squats. And so what we're doing is we're leveraging that habit with going to the toilet in the morning. So as soon as you've been to the toilet, drop down and do 5 squats. Then, of course, you should go to the hand basin and wash your hands. Most hand basins have a mirror in front of them. Look into the mirror. So we're coming to our 4th micro habit now. Look into the mirror and look right into your own eyes, and you say, it's going to be a fantastic day, or it's going to be a great day today. And you're going to say that because we know the science behind all these things is if you tell your brain that, then your brain believes it, because your brain is run by you. It doesn't run you. So you're telling your brain, it's going to be a great day today, or I'm going to have a great day today. So there's your 4th micro habit. Nothing difficult with all that. And then the next micro habit I do is I have 3 kilo weights, and I walk straight back into my bedroom from the bathroom, and I'll lift the 3 kilo weights, 10 arm weights. And it's really great for the muscle definition of my arms, but it's really good for my core strength. So if a horse does plow for me, I can hang on. It's really good for anything if I'm lifting things. It's good for my posture, but it's a really good micro habit as well. And it gets rid of the tuck shop arms. So 5 simple micro habits. Now, the theory behind it and the thinking behind it, the science behind it, is all positive. So then what would happen, say, in 2 weeks' time that you do those micro habits, I can bet your bottom dollar when you finish at the toilet, you'll be doing 10 squats because you can, because you've actually allowed your body to move and it's easy. And then you go and do your weights and you'll be up to 30 before you know it. And all of a sudden, oh, wow, gosh, those arms. I never thought I could change those arms. You can change anything. And your mindset is changing by just those 5 habits. And then what you'll find, say, in a month's time, that you can do your 5 squats anywhere, absolutely anywhere. And I could be literally in shopping in an aisle in Woolies. If I feel like doing some squats because I feel a bit, cramped up or tired, if I've been on the road, I'll do them. I couldn't care less who's watching because they're harmless. They don't hurt anyone. And what you do is you're actually growing your own core strength by doing that. Yeah. And that's the big thing.
I love that because it's just 5 things that you would normally do in the morning that you can then just incorporate, these things in the daily routine. So I really encourage anyone watching, make sure you write this down. I'll put this down below so that everyone can, follow them as well. I'm going to also put links to your website as well so that people can reach out to you. So as we wrap up today, what would you say that for anybody who's thinking of, wanting to go into business for themselves and, really wanting to, make sure that they've got their motivation, resilience, or their confidence, ready to face it because it is a lot starting a business. What would you give like one piece of advice for somebody?
The biggest piece of advice I would be giving to anyone and everyone would be find a mentor, someone who isn't going to tell you what to do, someone who will guide you into helping you, and they're not a friend. They are literally your mentor, and so they will have the hard conversations with you. That's what I'd be saying. And don't be scared. Just go forth and have a go.
That's it. Look, I absolutely love this conversation. I really think that this is going to give people so much information like to sort of take away with, but that they can have these sort of easy steps to implement into their daily routine that's really going to start that, shift in their mindset as well, which is really, what we need to focus on, for us to, really be the best version of ourselves so that, easy steps that you can do, create the change in mindset, but for you then to be the best version of yourself. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy. I'm really grateful that we've been able to have this conversation together.
That's very kind of you. And what I'll do specifically for your clients today, for your watchers, I'll give them a free PDF of my mindset roadmap. So I'll send that to you so that you can put that on your site as well. And I think it's a lovely gift that I can give away to everyone today. So Thank you, Christine. And to your viewers, thanks for listening.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this episode of the Corporate Escapists TV show. I'm your host, Christine Innes, and we'll see you all next week.
Great. Thanks.